Okay, we're ready to begin Unit 3 of 1301. Sorry I was late getting any videos up this week. Things are piling up on me here, but I've signed up for it, so we'll do the best we can. Unit 3 has three major topic areas. First is going to be what is known as the Federalist Era, and it takes its name from the first political party we ever had. That would be the Federalists, and there's a reason why I don't say Federalist Party, but that would be George Washington's 2 terms and John Adams's 1 term. First time there's a party change was the election of 1800. So the second part of it is called the Republican Era, or maybe the Republican Ascendancy, if I just want to sound pretentious. Because that was our second political party. Originally, the Democratic Republicans, shortened to simply Republicans. Now, that's not the Republican Party we have today. Oddly enough, that would be the institutional ancestor of the Democratic Party of until lately. It's hard to tell what they're kin to now. Oh, well, did I say that? And that's there are 3 consecutive 2 full-term presidents. Jefferson twice, Madison twice, Monroe twice, and that didn't happen again until Clinton, Bush, and Obama. And we may be headed for 4 consecutive 2 full-term. We'll see. Anyway, that would be the first quarter of the 19th century. We finish up with an era dominated by the kind of political leader who comes along every now and then, who's extremely high profile, extremely controversial, and succeeds by attracting into the political process large numbers of people who have not been involved in it before. There are some inviting parallels between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump. And last year, the paper assignment had to do with that. So, and it's called the Jacksonian era. And it's going to be the 1 unsuccessful term of John Quincy Adams and the 2 terms of Andrew Jackson, plus the term of his hand-picked successor, Martin Van Buren. And I don't have a whole lot of time to deal with that in terms, I don't know whether I'll have lecture videos or not. I usually don't get to it in a face-to-face class. That is why the supplements exist. So if it's there, it's been covered. So, but I may this time if the stars line up. Now, the next couple of days would be Friday and Saturday of this week, and the publisher of the supplements wants an ebook version, an ebook reprint of the 1302 supplements, which right now exists only on paper. So I have a deadline looming, and I want it ready for the spring. So I'm going to be spending time finding and inserting images or pictures, which the paper versions did not have. So that may be tough to get done in 2 days. I may get it all done tomorrow, but we've got to get back to the lecture videos, and that's just as I can. I don't know if very many people are watching them. It's kind of disappointing because I spent hours and hours generating them, editing them, get them ready, and then I check YouTube, like 5 views, 3 views, whatever it is. So this should not go to waste. This is part of the course that you signed up for. So if you're not doing that, what can I say? If your grade is disappointing. Okay. So we're going to start with the Federalist Era and looking at the class notes worksheet, which is the outline of all this. 1789 to 1801, the Federalist Era. So we've adopted the Constitution. We've elected the first Congress. We've elected George Washington, of course, to be the first president, the only one ever unanimously chosen by the Electoral College. I should tell you that the only times that ever worked as designed was the first 2 elections. It was designed to elect a president and a vice president in the absence of political parties, because they didn't know, the Constitution writers didn't know there were going to be political parties, and if somebody told them there would be, they probably would have outlawed it. Oh, what might have been. Anyway, George Washington's election was not the result of a political contest. So, first question, why was the first Congress a kind of continuation of the Constitutional Convention? Okay, we number Congresses. This is for purposes of pinpointing laws of when they started and all of that. A term of Congress lasts 2 years because we have congressional elections every odd-numbered year. One weird thing I've been thinking about, the Constitution sets the election day. It's the Tuesday after the first Monday of November every even-numbered year. It's not 3 weeks in October and the first Tuesday after the first Monday, or the Tuesday after the first Monday. So whether that would pass constitutional scrutiny in an originalist court, I don't know, but somebody ought to try it. So the first one elected was the first Congress, and then the second, and then the third, and the one we have now, I don't know, it's the 115th, 100 and something, like they were about to elect yet another one. So I'd have to stop and count on my fingers to see. But the first Congress. Now, why is it like a constitutional convention or a continuation thereof? The main reason is that there's a whole lot of work left to be done. The Constitution does not create a government so much as it authorizes one. It lines out the basic structure and all of that. It leaves a lot of stuff for Congress to set up. That's wise because Congress can change things as needs change as time goes on. There's some things that need to be set in stone. Some things you just sort of leave for future generations to figure out as needed. So it's as if the Constitution is the blueprint, and the first Congress has to build the building. So that's the main reason. There's a less important reason, is that it's some of the same guys. Okay, there's something like 21 men who had been members of the Constitutional Convention who are involved in the new government. 9 each in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and 3 members of the administration: President Washington, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton, and Attorney General Edmund Randolph would all been at the Constitutional Convention. Okay, where the legislative branch is concerned, that's Congress. The Constitution goes into considerable detail about that because the Constitution writers obviously thought that the legislative was the most important of the 3 branches. So, for lack of time mainly, and because I don't want to put you to sleep, I'm going to punt that to the supplements chapter on the Federalist Era. So that's going to tell you about that. Just little snippets along. Both houses organize and adopt sets of rules. The House of Representatives organizes itself every 2 years, the first time it meets after the new members have been sworn in. That's because all of the members, even those who have been there for decades, have just been elected. All right? The Senate organized itself in 1789 and has remained continuously organized ever since. So we'll let that ride. Read about that in the supplements. The executive branch, a lot of work to be done there. The executive, Article 2 of the Constitution sets up the executive branch. It says the executive power of the United States should be vested in a president of the United States, such as that. Goes on to give some of the powers of the president and so on. But what it does not do is specifically mention or set up any of the executive departments. There's a lot of work to be done. We have to have people who specialize in relations with foreign governments. We got to have people to handle the money. Okay, we got to have some national defense along the way. The Articles of Confederation had committees. Articles of Congress had committees dealing with this. The only mention of departments is when the Constitution writers, I guess just assuming there would be some, authorizes the president to request the opinions in writing of the heads of the major executive departments. Well, Constitution, what would those be? It doesn't say. Congress took the hint and set up the first 3 departments, each of which headed by an official who bore the title Secretary. And these people make up the president's cabinet, a word that's not in the Constitution, but the president's official advisory body. We borrowed the term from the English. You were using the term for that purpose. The first executive department is the Department of State, better known as the State Department. It handles our relations with foreign governments, and in slightly more modern times, if you're an American traveling in a foreign country and need the assistance of our government, they're going to be there for you. Okay. The first Secretary of State was Thomas Jefferson, who was late taking the job because he'd spent 9 years as our diplomatic representative in Paris. And when he finally got home, he began his duties on that. At the time, the State Department employed less than 10 people. Okay? Then Congress creates the Treasury Department that handles tax collection, financial records, accounting, disbursement of funds, all of that. And the first Treasury Secretary was Alexander Hamilton. Brilliant choice. Washington's first choice was Robert Morris of Philadelphia, who had been the Secretary of Finance or in charge of that under the Articles of Congress. He turned the job down, so Washington fell back on his most trusted aide during the war, Alexander Hamilton. And Hamilton plays a very major role, as we're going to see, in setting up policies that would stabilize the new government and make sure that it was safe from any attempts at rewriting the Constitution or being overthrown. And for most of the 19th century, in terms of the federal bureaucracy, Treasury, not state, its activities are offshore. But the Treasury Department was, shall we say, the 900-pound gorilla. For much of the 19th century, the Treasury Department building was this big building kind of across the corner from the Capitol building, towering over everything else. Its affairs were inside the country, and it's still very, very powerful. Okay. The third one that they set up was the Department of War. There is no department with that name today, but the Department of War was simply the United States Army. It was a cabinet department called the War Department. And we believed in civilian control of the military. We still do. And the first Secretary of War was Henry Knox, who had been one of Washington's most trusted and capable generals during the war. He was in charge of the artillery. Mr. Knox, General Knox, has a fort named after him where supposedly we store the gold. Some people have doubts about that, but I'll leave that alone. So those three secretaries formed the original cabinet, along with a lawyer. Congress saw fit to put a lawyer on permanent retainer just in case we needed someone to plead the case of the government in court. And that person was given the title Attorney General. The first Attorney General was Edmund Randolph of Virginia, who had been at the Constitutional Convention, put the Virginia plan before the convention, then refused to sign the thing, and then changed his mind and supported it. He's the first Attorney General. So the president and those four men made up the cabinet. Now, in surprisingly, I'd say less than the last 60 years, the vice president always sits in on cabinet meetings. For a long time, he did not, because the vice president does have actually a constitutionally assigned duty other than sitting around working the crossword puzzle waiting for the big guy to croak. The vice president is the president of the Senate. That, it was believed, makes him a member of the legislative branch, hence not invited to sit in with the cabinet. Now, like World War II and then the Kennedy assassination, we came to a time where if something happens to the president, the vice president's got to take that baton exchange without missing a step. So from then till now, vice president definitely sits in on that. Okay, so that's how it was set up.